Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, and I've got two guests from the Sneaky G Podcast. Window 3, Mr. Sneaky G, man, out in the Texas Fort Worth area. How you doing, boss? Pleasure to have you here.
Yo, what's up, fam? Hey, I appreciate you, Richie. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. I'm always looking forward to talking some Giants football.
Yeah, man, I catch you as frequently as I could. Sometimes it's on my car rides home, but I like what you guys are doing, and I'm glad that we have a chance to have an open discussion about many things Giants related. Window 2, we got Big Blue Ant out in another enemy territory, out in Philadelphia area. Yeah,
it's not good.
It's a brave man right there. That is a very brave man.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love the hate. I'm here for it.
I'll take it likewise. I'll take all the smoke. Let's do it.
No, absolutely. And there's a lot to speak on because, as you know, and everybody knows by now, our franchise cornerstone running back is now wearing the godforsaken, ugly Kelly green. I definitely want to hit on the aftermath of that because, football continues, and I think the Giants are doing a respectable job of moving forward. And, the vision of the regime that we brought in, one of the tough things about being a fan is that we do fall in love with players. And sadly, they can't all remain Giants for life, so to speak. And then, there's a limited time in this league that you are able to secure the bag and have that generational wealth for your family. And I think that, emotions aside, we're all fans. It is what it is. I want to talk about what we have cooking now in that backfield and what we're going to continue to hopefully build upon. And, I understand, Big Blue Ant, that right before we went live, you mentioned to me that you're a Michigan fan.
Yes, absolutely.
So I take that you have a rather high opinion of J.J. McCarthy.
I do, and I love busting sneakiness. I love busting chops about it. But if it's something we can do, either trade up late into the first round because we didn't take a quarterback at 6 or somewhere in the second round, if JJ's there, I don't see it being a bad choice. I know a lot of people are saying Michael Penix. My issue with Penix is he's injury prone. He's coming off of 2 major knee injuries. And don't get me wrong, I think the kid's very talented, but to what extent? I mean, if you're going to pick up a guy like that, you might as well keep Daniel Jones.
No, absolutely. I mean, the kid has had shoulder and knee issues. And, whenever it's the lower extremities, that's actually a bigger recovery time than just being cleared to play. There's a lot more that goes into it. But the one thing that I will say about that kid that I actually appreciate, I do think that he has the winner's mentality because when you keep coming back from those kind of things, there's something to be said about a certain determination. And you got to have some guts to play that game. Not an easy game to play.
Well, not only guts. I mean, the guy's playing quarterback.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. You have to have the winner's mentality. And I think I'm still trying to grasp. And I mean, people are this may be a hot take. I'm still trying to understand and wrap my head around the Caleb Williams saga, if you will.
It's a lot.
Not so much the saga. I mean the Caleb Williams sweepstakes.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing we could say about Penix and McCarthy is that they've won in their program. Caleb can't say that, but yet there's this hype, there's this aura around him. Can he throw a good ball? Well, yeah, of course he can. But so can that quarterback from Tennessee. He could throw a good ball. Can he can he win games? I mean, can he win big games? I guess for me, I'm a little hesitant on Williams with this, and I'm just going to come out and say it, this entitled mentality in a sense.
Yes.
Not performing in the combine, which he didn't have to. He mainly just went there to, meet with teams. Okay. But he did absolutely nothing in the
And
combine.
that's my point on that whole thing with Caleb Williams at the combine. So I understand he went to meet with teams, but at the same time, teams that are interested in you, if you're not going to perform and put yourself out there for teams that, maybe thought otherwise, then why even bother going to the combine and wasting people's times? What he did, he could have just did it his pro day, and the team
Exactly. Yep.
that in him could have been there.
It's a little disconcerting because it seems like he's more interested in driving his brand than he is to driving the chains. Because I don't think that it's the best look coming in, because every year you have 3 or 4 kids that play that position that get overhyped, and maybe one of the 4 might be the real deal. Because if you look at the stats from guys getting picked that high, translating into Lombardi winners, it is not a very populated list.
Right.
And I for one was kind of shocked what the Chicago Bears did. I mean, you invest in this kid, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
It was enabled because we made a deal with them to open that opportunity up for them. And you finally get all this talent. I'm over here thinking, wow, they got Keenan Allen. They got DJ Moore. Man, if they get Marvin Harrison Jr., they already got a really solid tight end. This team's going to be flying on offense. And even if there is a greater gain down the road, I feel that you're taking a step back before you take anything forward. Because at the end of the day, Justin Fields already knows what it is in the NFL, whereas
he has the experience.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm kind of like the idea of getting a quarterback at 6. Although I have been saying for some time now that I wouldn't be shocked if we go, say, lineman or wide receiver, and then trade back up to get in the first round. But now that that's already been, those picks have already been taken when we picked up Burns,
yes,
from Carolina, that I think, and also the re-signing of Traquan to the Eagles. I think the fact that, now we are going to be hitting, I don't want to say rebuild, but we are going to be hitting the reset button as far as quarterback play. Now, one thing I didn't realize is how, and I don't want to say the word fragile, but if Jones takes a wrong hit, his career is done. I mean, I was doing some reading up on that. I didn't realize how, sensitive is a strong word. I'll say fragile. I'll just come out and say it. The situation with Jones. And now I'm reading stuff how Dable said he might not be ready week 1.
That was part of the motivation for bringing in a Drew Lock, because Lock's making about half a year of what Tyrod would make.
Yeah.
He's currently, across the locker room, so to speak, on the Jet side. But my question here, and it's a little bit of a concern of mine. We all know that the Minnesota Vikings also have an interest in McCarthy. It at least appears to be the card that they're playing. Gerard Mayo, new coach of the Patriots, has stated he is open to the idea of trading back if the package makes sense. And this is what I say to myself. Say if it's Minnesota that trades directly with New England, I think it would behoove the Giants to sit right at 6 and see how this plays, because if you're either the LA Chargers at 5 or the Arizona Cardinals at 4, you really don't have a ton of incentive to do anything other than take a wide receiver, especially in the Chargers.
They're not going to take a quarterback.
I think the Chargers are definitely going offensive line. Joe Alt's name keeps getting brought up.
That is a possibility. Yes, that is a possibility, because he's the best one to have out of the bunch.
The latest I've heard as far as the J.J. McCarthy thing, and it came out today on multiple streams, that the Washington Commanders are eyeballing J.J. right now at number 3.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so that could be.
And I just want to know, how much equity do we have to give up? Because I think I was reading something this weekend how they were saying we were talking to teams into moving up in the top 3 to make a move.
I would have to think that if you
How much equity? I mean, are we going to give up so much of next year's draft picks for this year's?
That's why I'm not too keen on it. I mean,
Nah.
I understand that we need a quarterback, and more than likely, this is the last year for number 8 in a Giant uniform, but you're talking about dipping into picks next year because you don't necessarily have that second round package that could have got it due to the Burns deal.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
already stated.
one of the packages I just heard today too was, and again, it's all scenario issues, but I saw something today that's saying that the Cardinals would accept something along the lines of, swapping first round picks,
Yes.
then taking the Giants' later second round pick this year, and then I believe their fourth round pick this year, and then the Giants in return would flop, get the other side of the flop, and then get back a fifth round pick next year.
I would say ultimately
fair.
It's not a terrible deal, but I would say ultimately the Vikings have a hand in figuring some of this, because in the event that, let's say, New England picking at 3 were to make a move with the Vikings, I think at that point, if you're the Giants, you literally just stay right at 6 and see what drops to you. My personal belief is that it could actually be Jaden Daniels, shockingly enough, dropping to 6. It's not out of the question. I mean, it really depends on what does Washington think they want it to. Chicago, I would be shocked if they didn't take Caleb Williams. And the Patriots are not just a quarterback away, similar to the Giants. They got, what will Minnesota dangle? With the emergence of Jordan Addison, who's to say that Justin Jefferson is completely safe from not being moved? They don't even have a quarterback there.
I saw something yesterday. I believe I did look into it, but I can't remember if it was a legit source or not, that the Vikings came out and said if the right package came along, they would be up to trading Jefferson.
And that's intriguing because, it's funny how history can be so cyclical. I mean, Minnesota was responsible for making a wild trade that fed the Dallas Cowboys a dynasty. The Herschel Walker deal, I don't necessarily know if this would have the same kind of recourse, but, the guys on my show, Zappy, Idris, were kind of getting into a conversation with me about how with the change coming at quarterback for Minnesota, they might actually view Justin Jefferson as somewhat expendable because Jordan Addison had such a nice rookie year in his own right. But I think it really comes down to the Patriots. I don't necessarily think Arizona's coming off the 4 pick, because I think that they already know that Harrison wants them, and I think they want Harrison enough. I really do think it might come down to New England.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I'll wait.
I was just saying. Also, a lot of people. So the consensus for the Giants is whether we stick, whether we move up, it's either going to be a quarterback or a receiver.
Yes.
My question is, if the quarterback is there, why not go after him? And everybody's going to complain. Well, Malik Neighbors, you can get a Dunze, like guys like that. I think the kid out of Florida State, Keon Coleman,
yes.
He's going to be there in the second round. I have no doubt. He might even go as far as late in the first round.
It's funny. You mentioned Florida State. Jordan Travis was a top 3 quarterback prior to the injury. I know the injury is very scary,
right?
But he is a pro-style quarterback that fits into Dable's system. And my thing is this. Let's say if we're really hot for McCarthy, but we don't feel good about Drake May. Let's say if Drake May was the guy to fall. I could co-sign them going receiver, because the thing is, if you're right about Jordan Travis, you hit a home run. If you're wrong about him, you didn't go crazy breaking your neck to get the kid.
Right.
Because of the sheer fact that he could be had in round 3 or 4. I'm not going to lie. I like McCarthy.
If we were to get him in those late rounds, we don't have to worry about a 5th-year option.
That's another good
if
point.
we cut him, we cut him. It's right. Because he came in the later rounds. Now, earlier I was asking, what kind of equity we have. And if I'm not mistaken, we only have 6 picks this draft, 1 in each round.
No, we got 2 in the second.
Well, we did have two in the second.
Well, we did have two, but we gave one up for Burns. But now we got one
Right, that's right.
from Seattle at 47.
To my knowledge, I think we have the second or third fewest in this draft.
Yeah, we have the number 70th and then the 107th, and then it goes 166th and 183rd. We don't have any 7th round picks this year. We don't have a plethora. Don't ask me how to spell that. Of draft picks like we did last year.
There's an O in there. I know that part.
Probably an A.
Yeah, somebody corrected me.
Yeah, just don't ask me to buy a vowel or anything. So, I mean, what I'm saying is like we don't have that much equity to kind of move up and down in this year's draft like we did in previous drafts. So I'm really curious on how Joe is going to play this out.
Which is why I see them doing what they're doing, because if you think about it, ideally in the draft is where you want to, quote unquote, rebuild. And the fact that they're grabbing a lot of guys, a lot of free agents, some big names, some not so big names, but guys that can do the job. So you fill the void in free agency so that when you do get to your minimum drafts and you want something and that there's a possibility to get who you want, you may have to trade up. That's where next year's draft stock comes in.
Right.
Because again, again, I'm going to use this word loosely. If you're rebuilding, you almost expect to be within the top 10 next year as well. So if that's how they're planning it, and again, stranger things have happened. If that's how they're planning it as a rebuild, then it seems likely that, they could use next year's first round or a couple second rounds or so on and so forth. So it kind of makes sense to me.
If they want him, they'll get him. Sorry, Sneaky, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If they want him, they're going to get him. That's how I see it. It worked out with the Eli Manning situation, but if we remember, Eli was not embraced by the fan base right away because, number one, he kind of gave the bad taste of entitlement initially. Right. A la John Elway, really. John Elway's the only other guy you could really remember pulling that at such a high pick. He didn't want to go to Indy in his case. And, Phillip Rivers got off to a better start than Eli. 07, I think Eli seized it, and I don't think any Giant fan is going to say that we didn't get that right.
Right.
But, it's been a mixed bag in the contingents of the Giant fan base of what they think about McCarthy and what they don't. And I think part of it is like when I see people literally say this is Daniel Jones 2.0.
I've seen that too. And
I saw that.
It drives me crazy.
They're basically saying you're making the same pick at number 6.
Look, the same people that are saying that are the same people that wanted Eli gone in 2013.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're the same people that I actually on social media posted out. Be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
And now we got what they've been wishing for. The moment Jones got selected, they were booing and hollering. So
Indeed.
I don't think
Indeed.
in any pick whatsoever, unless it's their own name being called in the 6th overall pick in the NFL draft, that they're going to be satisfied with.
There's one thing I'm like really sick of, and I was talking to Sneaky about it earlier today. I'm sick of the whole conception and misconception and the whole idea of we need an elite quarterback. We got to have an elite quarterback. My question to people asking that is, what is an elite quarterback? Because they haven't played it down in the NFL. So what is your idea of an elite quarterback? It makes no sense to me. You can have the guys that you perceive to be elite, your Caleb Williams, your Drake May, your Jaden Daniels, come out, get picked 1, 2, 3, and end up being all busts. I mean, DeMarcus Russell is the epitome of that. The kid was a superstar coming out of college.
To counter that, I don't understand. For argument's sake, let's say, why can't we say J.J. McCarthy's elite? He's a 3-time Big Ten conference championship winner. He won the national championship last year. What more does he have to do?
It's disturbing.
Elite.
It's the numbers.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's the numbers. Everybody wants to sit here and go, they ran the ball, their defense, da-da-da-da. I'm so sick of that too. Last time I checked, every football game ever played was a team sport.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Games and players and all of that, all you can have your idea of the worst players in the league all on the same team. If the chemistry fits, look for that team to be at least playoff bound. It's all about the chemistry. You could bring in the most sought out elite quarterback, the most sought out elite running back, bring them into a system, and they could be the biggest bust, and the team could be the biggest joke in the league. It bothers me because
I mean, look at our DNA over the years. Phil Simms, who I think when he had to show what he could do on the grandest of stages, he did it in Super Bowl 21. But if you look at our DNA, committee backfields, stingy defense, field position, minimal mistakes made.
And high time possession. We keep the ball.
Yes.
We run the ball. And I'm going to tell you, and I want to throw this out there. I want to get number 7 from Notre Dame. That is Brandon Jacobs 2.0. I don't care who's in the backfield. He needs to be a New York Football Giant come draft weekend.
I actually like the kid out of Florida State too. I forget his name.
Oh, Trey Benson?
Yeah. I'm really liking that kid too. And of course, being a Michigan fan, you got to throw Blake Corum into that.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
The kid reminds me of Maurice Jones-Drew.
I could see that. They do have a similar skill set. Yeah, I actually could see that, but I just get so turned off with why this kid would remind somebody of DJ other than possibly they get taken at the same pick because, I mean, no disrespect to any of these kids. We're going to find out when it gets real, but why wouldn't Drake May possibly remind you more of a Daniel Jones when, number one, they both came out of the ACC, and number two, I think you could make a logical argument that they're not playing the best competition.
Well, I think it's funny when people say these words. Who's going to be the next Tom Brady? Do we forget that Tom Brady was the last pick in the draft? I mean,
not to mention he was a game manager.
Yeah.
During the first half of that dynasty, and nobody wants to remember that. They have the audacity to say that J.J. McCarthy is going to be nothing more than a game manager. Tom Brady was every bit of that if you revisit his initial couple of years in the league.
Game managers have been proven to win Super Bowls. I can name Trent Dilfer. Other one. Shoot.
There is nothing wrong with being a game manager as a quarterback. There is nothing wrong.
That's what a leader does. A leader does whatever it takes, whether it's handing the ball off, whether it's throwing short routes, whether it's taking a deep shot every now and then. What matters to me is completions and moving the ball. It bothers me so much where you see teams that constantly. I'm not saying this because they're in the division and I'm not particularly great about them, but the Dallas Cowboys, they're all about the big flashy play. Oh, CD broke for this, and this. You know what? Whatever happened? Hey, you know what? There's 10 yards. Let's get 10 yards, and then guess what? We got another 4 downs to get another 10 yards. That's what I want.
And they hurt themselves because they've lost 2 running backs in the last 2 years. Zeke used to be a staple. Now Pollard's gone.
Yeah.
The Eagles have done a pretty good job of the committee situation, which I believe that our man Barkley will probably benefit from. But at the same time, we talked about this off air.
I'm sorry. Look, I'm hurt about it. I'm butthurt. I'm petty.
You have no reason to apologize.
I still have a problem with Parcells coaching the Dallas Cowboys.
That was a little weird.
I'm gonna be spiteful. I don't wish any ill will towards him whatsoever. But the bottom line, he didn't want to play. He didn't want to be a Giant anymore.
No,
he got tagged. He got his feelings hurt. And remember when we had Tiki on the show?
Yeah.
And Tiki said the only person that loves you more is your mama.
Exactly.
And he realized that the Giants didn't love him as much as he thought he was loved.
All that talk of I want to be a Giant for life. I want to finish. I started my career here. I want to finish my career here. Listen. To me, that's all. It's a job interview, is what it is. It's a job. I want where I'm going to get the most money. Let's face facts. When we go apply for a job, we want the money. It's all about the
Yeah.
money. And that's what he did. If he would have been forthright and forthcoming and saying,
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want the money. I want the money. Unfortunately, the Giants didn't give me what I wanted, which again is another reason why I think he didn't want to be a Giant, is because if you look what the Giants offered him in the bye week prior to last year before they tagged him, it's essentially the same money that the Eagles just gave him.
If not more,
minus the full guarantees. That's the one difference.
But,
right.
But I think the guarantee. What do you got? He got 26 in Philly, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the Giants were going to give him 22.
I think that's
22 or 24.
So that's what measures our loyalty for life, is an extra 3.5 to 4 mil. And that's the turnoff with a lot of Giant fans. It's not that he left. And I don't disparage Tiki for being like, bro, if you're going to leave, go to Houston, go to Baltimore, one of those kind of teams.
Yeah.
But nobody's going to tell me that when you go to our most hated rival, that it's not with the intention to stick it to, at minimum, the ownership. Then a day later, I didn't think it through. Yes, you did. You thought about it for 2
he
straight
knew what
months.
he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
Absolutely.
Here's the question that I didn't hear anybody ask Saquon. Hey, Saquon, who else offered you money? Who else did you talk to? Because it seemed to me, because it was only a few days in the free agency, that he bolted for Philly.
It was like literally once the door opened. So I don't necessarily think that he even waited to see if there was going to be interest from a Houston or interest from a Baltimore.
I don't either.
And then you factor in the possibility that there was some tampering.
Apparently, hopefully that'll be investigated, and we'll get some headway on that. Now, I'm gonna defend Tiki here with him saying that he's speaking for the fan base and saying you're dead to me. There's some Giant fans out there that felt that way.
I did.
I'm one of them, and of course, I'm not going to say any names. There's some Giant fans that wish injury upon him.
Yeah, I would never take it that far, but I do
understand.
understand.
Thing.
Right? I ain't saying no names. I am not saying any names.
I'm not saying anything.
But I mean, all I'm saying is this: be real. And this is something that I want athletes from this day forth. Don't sit up there on a podium, spit in my face, tell me it's raining, say you want to be a Giant for life, you're worried about your legacy, which is straight up BS. Just be straight up and say, I'm worried about my legacy, but I need to get paid.
And I'm deeply disappointed. I'm deeply disappointed in that metric of it. And I'm disappointed in the other breed of fan that wants to just chastise the organization. I'm like, guys, with all due respect, this is not 1993. You do not build teams around running backs frequently unless if they have a certain skill set, like a McCaffrey. And I know Barkley wanted McCaffrey money. Barkley is not McCaffrey. You don't have McCaffrey hands.
And McCaffrey got his bag when running backs were at their highest.
That's a good point. And oddly enough, this was a good year for the running back market, surprisingly. And I actually do think that the Barkley deal kind of helped that out for some of these other dudes. Yeah. I think Derrick Henry probably could have got more, but I think he wants to make sure he wins now. He's been through a lot of beatings. And
I'm so glad he didn't go to Dallas. When I saw he went to Baltimore, I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. Speaking of Dallas, the Dak Prescott situation kind of bends them over in terms of financial flexibility. Dallas might be a player in the second wave of free agency, but it just seems that they're going to roll with kind of like what they have. According to one of my co-hosts, Mike Zappi, Dallas Cowboys fan, he said that Jerry basically said something along the lines of, you've got to win with less, like some kind of weird rally cry. And he's like, we got to get rid of him. I've had enough of him.
Well, first he was talking about that he's all in.
That's the funny part. Once again,
he said he was basically he's all in, but then he was like, we need to win with what we got.
Your point about being
real. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you know what it reminds me of. You know what it reminds me of. I'm a Yankees fan.
It
reminds me of Hal Steinbrenner.
Yes.
We're gonna spend money. We're gonna spend money. They've done nothing in the last 10, 15 years. '09 was the last championship. I mean, they're doing the same thing again this year. We went out and traded all of our pitching prospects for a guy that we can't even solidify to stay here and know that he's going to be here after next year. It's ridiculous.
Boston fan for life, Yankees suck. I beg to differ. And
Put up that comment that said something about emergency. I want to know what he said to his kid who idolizes him. Oh, to the kids. I know. That's painful.
Speaking of kids,
well,
you had to have seen the interview with Saquon's daughter.
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't hate on the kid. I mean, it's funny.
Hey, I got no issue with a little
I'm not
girl.
gonna hate on the kid
because kids wear a lot of times as children we wear whatever our parents bring home or portray. Yeah. I'm a son of a New York City police officer, 9/11 first responder. So of course I worried about my old man when he was out there. So I guess maybe from a little girl's perspective, she's like, "Oh, Daddy, are you going to finally win?" Because these guys are competitors. I'm not going to question.
I can only if the walls could talk in his home when he lived in New York.
That's what I mean. It goes back to what we were saying. He didn't want to be here. So he was going home after every game talking about Jesus, Christmas, we can't win.
Every game, every practice. He probably cussing out his teammates, or maybe the coach.
Kids
and a lot of coaching turnover too.
Yeah. Kids that age only mimic what their parents say.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And I like what Sneaky said. I think it's really about just be real. I don't think anybody's going to hate you if you're coming off from one specific direction of just saying, you know what, I'm only going to be in this league for a short while. I've taken my bumps. I want to get my money. Let it be known. But when you try to pull the heartstrings of the fan base on one level, saying how much it means to you to be a Giant for life, and then a real Giant for life,
not only a Giant for
life, Wellington Barrow calls you out about it.
Yeah. Well, no, he was talking about his legacy.
Yes.
He was bringing up other players. I want to be like Eli. I want to be like Strahan, Tiki Barber. I'm worried about he wasn't worried about his legacy.
Over their 3 dead bodies, they would never put on that uniform.
No. Now, I tell you what, I can speak for Tiki Barber. He would never. And the thing I want to say this about, again, I'm going to defend Tiki. Hate him, love him, like him, dislike him, whatever you want as a Giant fan. He has never worn a star or put on a nasty ass eagle on his helmet. He has never done those things.
And I would like to piggyback that point into another good one. He balled out against those 2 teams consistently.
Oh, yes, he did.
And to be fair, guys, do we have a highlight reel of Saquon Barkley plays against the Eagles and Cowboys? Just asking for the crew.
There's one against the Eagles.
The peace sign.
Eagles.
The peace sign. And maybe week 1, oh God, I think it was 17 or 18. Week 1, it wasn't 18. He wasn't in the league. Probably about 19 maybe. Awuzie caught him when he broke out on the first drive. I was at his first game against the Jaguars in his rookie year. But the point is like Tiki carried the Giants in a bigger way than Saquon ever did. And that's something that, even when Saquon gets in his feels about, oh, you were always hating on me. I'm like, bro, he considers himself a Giant for life. You take players like a Stephen Baker who go to the tailgates that are players that become fans just like all of us. That's not no act. They love that organization.
Yeah.
And like I said, how Tiki was very close with Mr. Mara as well as Jeremy Shockey for that matter. And what do we really hate Tiki for? That when he was a proven veteran in this league, he questioned a very, very young Eli Manning. I love Coach Coughlin. I love Eli Manning and I love Tiki Barber. But the thing is, at that juncture of their careers, ask Michael Strahan. Did he come to training camp in 07? Did that locker room love Tom Coughlin prior to 07?
Right. No.
There were variables. And it's like, I was so pleased that we shocked the world, beat arguably the greatest offense of all time. But I say to myself, he was the elder statesman in that locker room during that time. He wasn't an Eli fan. He wasn't a Coughlin fan. But that doesn't make him less of a giant or less of a great player. He's our greatest running back by every statistical metric.
Oh, he's the all-time leading rusher.
I got a question for you guys, and I'm on the fence about it. I don't know how to answer this. So everybody knows, specifically Giants fans, how big Mark Bavaro was to this organization. How are our feelings towards him, considering he went to the Eagles?
So we actually, you and I, we talked about this, and you brought up a valid point. You said he was on the downside of his career.
Yes,
which he was, and I think it's the same difference though. I mean, the same thing can be said about Stephen. Is it Stephen Randall? What's his last? It was Randall. He was the slot in the 07.
Ruben Randall,
Stephen. I'd see that's, wishful thinking, I guess. Ruben Randall, he did the same thing, went to the Eagles for 2 years.
Oh, no. You're talking about Steve Smith.
That's
Steve
where you
Smith.
got to,
Okay. Yeah.
He got the bag. He got the bag and did not play well there.
Right. Did not play well, and he was out of the league in a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you look at Bradbury, same situation.
Bradbury, yeah.
He had a good year his first year with Philly. And then as the season went on, his age started to show.
He's still a giant hero. He prevented the Eagles from winning a Super Bowl.
Well, him and Kadarius.
Yes, he did. I mean, he'll be celebrated in some ways.
I'm celebrating
but at the same time, I think it has to be the same difference. I mean, but this one hurts more. Now, granted, when he left, it was the early 90s. We didn't have social media. I don't remember Mark Bavaro saying he wants to be a Giant for life, and he's worried about his legacy and contract disputes. But I'm sure there were some issues. And what does it say, Quentin Moore? Now my question is about Saquon. What legacy? I said he was going to leave. People laughed at me. Now hold on. I'm going to stop right there. The reason why people laughed at you, Quentin, was because of what Traquan was saying. The fact that he was going to stay a Giant.
That's reasonable.
He wants to be there.
That's reasonable.
I believed him.
I'm not going to lie.
I
was drinking some of the Kool-Aid in my own right, because I guess I just can't picture, when you look at our lineage, guys saying that and not meaning it. And as far as Bavaro goes, I think the reason why it's a little more forgivable is because Bavaro did everything he could possibly do in a Giant uniform before leaving. It's kind of like, okay, here in Orlando, like when Shaq left the Magic and then went to LA and started winning all the championships. Or when LeBron left Cleveland, he left without winning. So it was kind of like even more of a sour taste. What did Bavaro do in Philly? He got paid for a couple of years and retired due to injuries. I think it's a little less, feelings, and, it's not the social media era either, which I'm sure makes it a little more tolerable too, because, a lot of people get on social media that just say a lot of stuff that you're like, man, maybe you shouldn't have said that.
Right.
Yeah.
Going into the whole internet always wins thing, because even with Saquon himself talking so ill of the Eagles, going into his first season in Giant Blue, and then to see how things have changed, so to speak, it hurts on the level of, me myself, I've been a fan since 1990. And that's a great year to pick up Giant football. We know what happened that year. It was a great season.
Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely. The injury to Joe Montana, the team galvanizing after Rodney Hampton had the injury, Otis Anderson having that last leg and just, taking over, kind of turning the clock back. But to your point, Sneaky, back to the DNA of the team. How did we beat Buffalo? How did we beat New England in 46? We kept those great quarterbacks off the field.
Yeah. And not only did we keep the quarterbacks off the field, when they were on the field, we made sure they were on their backs.
Yes, indeed.
Because it's hard for them to throw the ball when they're on their backs. And that's what we did as a defense. And we need to get back to that. I think with Thibodeau and now the signing of Burns, I think that's going to be beneficial to our defense.
Absolutely.
I want to know when we're going to re-sign Simmons, if that's even an option.
No, I want him so bad back.
This is my take on Simmons, and I did speak to Quentin off air. He's also in favor of bringing back Simmons. I think it's a post-draft re-signing if they re-sign him, because I think the Giants want to see first if they could potentially get their hands on, say, like an Edgerrin Cooper, a real stud linebacker that plays the outside. Because if you notice, Simmons hasn't signed anywhere else yet either. So I do believe that there are other football teams that have the same, like remember, like even like a guy like a Landon Collins, who I have a ton of respect for. The Giants kind of sometimes waited. Okay, what do we have? Who's injured? Bring Landon back. He knows the system. I mean, I was at his comeback game in Jacksonville, 22. But I do believe that is what the holdup is for Simmons. Yeah, we got it right here. He's agreeing with that.
New defense is a go.
Yeah. Resign Simmons.
It's going to be so dope. Yeah, resign Simmons, yeah. So
I love Dave Simmons. I wanted him in that draft.
Yeah, likewise.
A lot of Giant fans. Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at Bavaro's career. Okay, it was 85 to 94. His last season with the Giants was in 1990 when he won his last Super Bowl. 91, he missed the whole season due to a knee injury. Played in Cleveland for a year. Then the last 2 seasons was in Philly.
Right.
And he scored a total of 9 touchdowns in Philly.
And the Cleveland connection makes a little sense because Bill Belichick was their coach during that time.
Right. Because I think Parcells had left and Hanley was the head coach. And then that was the changeover from Phil Simms as well.
It's incredible because we lost Tom Coughlin. He went to Boston College. He was on that 90 staff.
Yep.
We lose Bill Belichick to Cleveland. Parcells retired due to health concerns.
Uh-huh.
And, maybe a not so great secret, well-kept secret, George Young didn't like Bill Belichick because that's partially the reason why we didn't get him and why Ray Hanley took over. That was a dark 2-year period.
Let's not forget, as soon as the 90 season was over, Belichick was hired as the head coach of the Baltimore Browns, the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, soon to be Baltimore. And that's another weird history turn that they didn't choose to keep Belichick along for that Baltimore ride. Tom Coughlin did well. He prevented Notre Dame from getting their share of the national title. That was a big upset in Boston College, probably his biggest win in BC. I mean, man, second-year expansion team, you take them a game away from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You do it again a couple of years later, and we know what he did with us, beating probably the greatest dynasty in league history, not once but twice. But, that Hanley era was strange because I remember Sims getting benched in favor of Hostetler. He didn't come back until about, I think it was midway through the year, a comeback victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right, yep.
Back when they were still rocking with the creamsicles.
Right.
Yeah, but and even how Sims got unceremoniously dumped. If anybody
they waived him in 93.
It was ugly the way that happened.
And then they started Dave Brown, which was from Duke.
Yes, indeed.
I got heartburn now. Thanks. Yeah, it was painful for me.
Year one was the only one that
Phil Simms is my guy, by the way. Phil Simms is he's my guy all time.
But you know what I'll give Simms a ton of credit for? When certain Giant fans were booing upstairs, Phil pleaded with the fans to not boo and spoke so highly of the Giant brass, even though he didn't have to do that. And I think that showed a different kind of class that Phil Simms had. And once again, that's a Giant for life as well.
Yes.
So when, he's entitled to have some feelings, which I'm sure he did. I mean, I remember for a little while there, he was covering the New York Jets. That seemed very uncomfortable for a little while. The same way that I'm sure Met fans would be uncomfortable when Tom Seaver was in the booth with Scooter. I personally think the Mets probably threw him a couple of extra bucks to go in as a Met. That's another conversation. But that's all the more reason why I can't buy any of the Saquon crap. Because when I think about some of the great men that played for this organization, and the lineage and the guys that come back every year to be honored and just to be part of the fan base, essentially. You guys like Matthias Kiwanuka, who are like legit cool fans, players turned fans. I already mentioned Mr. Stephen Baker, who's in addition to being a Super Bowl hero, is just an awesome human being.
And let's not forget Lawrence Taylor too. Lawrence Taylor shows the Giants organization, and Leonard Marshall.
Leonard Marshall, phenomenal.
That's my guy too. Big number 70.
One of the most underrated players at his position in his era. He changed the course of history.
Yes. Yeah.
He really did.
The one thing I've noticed about Leonard Marshall, he always has those key moments in big games.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody remembers him for the sack against Joe Montana, but they forget that the man sacked Jim Kelly in the Super Bowl.
He certainly did.
Oh,
and that was an offense.
Yes.
That was an offense that, I'll be honest, you play that game 10 times, I'm not sure if we beat them twice. That Buffalo team that we defeated in Super Bowl 25, in my opinion, without a doubt, was the best of the four.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're talking about a team that ran at the time, the Los Angeles Raiders out of the building. I think it was like 51-3. They whooped up on Don Shula's Dolphins really bad too, and not too many people had the Giants pulling that off because the Giants they prevented the 49ers from three-peating by kicking 5 field goals, which is truly remarkable.
Yeah, a lot of people forget too during that run that Buffalo had. Every Super Bowl they lost was to an NFC East team.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. The Eagles were the only ones that didn't beat them.
Right.
Correct.
Till the Eagles first ball.
And also too, what people don't realize, that sack I was telling you about, Leonard Marshall, was the only sack that Jim Kelly got in that Super Bowl.
That is correct as well. And revisiting that, I love to revisit some of these classic games. A play that might get overlooked. Jeff Hostetler taking the sack in the end zone, but holding on to the football.
Yeah.
That's a 5-point swing.
Yeah.
Stephen Baker's touchdown before the half. Mark Ingram, the broken tackles to get that first down.
On one foot.
Unbelievable.
On one foot.
Unbelievable. And that game was special.
Now, hold on. Let's not forget about MVP Otis Anderson, too. He had to pound the rock that whole game.
The old-fashioned way. And once again, when we talk about the DNA of this team, I'm not here to hate on Saquon. That fella behind me, number 27, he played on a lot of tough offenses that were not blessed with talent, but still having a phenomenal career. Another guy, unfortunately, got short injuries. Right after him, Tiki Barber took his job. You know what Tiki brought. Your point, Otis Anderson, number 24, phenomenal.
101 yards in Super Bowl, by the way. Super Bowl.
It was an exceptional performance. And truth be told, had that Norwood kick gone through, it would have been Thurman Thomas as your MVP. But that day was about the running backs.
I'm not going to lie. Every time they show that game, I always wonder if it's going to be good that time. That time I watch it, I'm still on the edge of my seat. Okay, it's still no good. Okay.
I must admit, I watched the Four Falls of Buffalo. I got a lot of respect for them, even though, they might not have the best ideas about us because we broke their hearts. But they did give Norwood, quite the ovation coming home. So big ups to them for having class like that.
Right.
And loving their player regardless.
Yeah,
regardless. We're always going to be linked with them because it's one of the greatest Super Bowls ever played. Not to mention the time in our country.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you guys need to do is check out, if you haven't already, watch Jersey Boys. It's on YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's about the Giants moving from New York to playing in Jersey, and how they took the NY off the helmet and put Giants instead, and how the New Jersey, I think it was the New York mayor didn't want the Giants to celebrate their, have a Super Bowl parade in New York. So they ended up having a prep rally in Giant Stadium. And I didn't realize this. 2007 was their first Super Bowl parade ever.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Because they didn't have it in 1990 because of Desert Storm.
That's correct.
The security measures, and yeah, it was 2007 with Eli and Strahan celebrating.
You know what? That didn't dawn on me probably until this moment. But what I do recall, my late father had made mention of this to me about how Christy Whitman wanted the Giants to ditch New York and be called the Jersey Giants.
Right.
And that just wasn't going to happen. They were looking for every loophole in the book to keep the New York name, so to speak. But at the end of the day, it's like one and the same to me. I mean, you're so close. I mean, they're closer to Manhattan than the Cowboys are to Dallas.
That's true. Because the Dallas Cowboys play in Arlington.
That's correct. The San Francisco 49ers play in Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ann, go ahead.
No, you're good. I just keep saying, I've been saying it for years now. I just want the Giants to go back to the navy blue helmets with the Giants logo.
Yes.
That just brings it's a staple in Giants history. One that could be repeated. I mean, kudos to and I hate saying it, the Philadelphia Eagles for bringing back the Kelly Green. You see how the fans respond to that. They love that. Well,
it brings back a lot of phenomenal memories. And in their case, they had teams where Randall Cunningham was kind of changing the game in his own way, being a scrambler and just really extending plays. You had Richie White there and the late Jerome Brown. They had some really good teams in what, in my opinion, at the time was the most elite division in the NFL by far.
Yeah, because I mean, there were many years where you had at least 4 of the 5 NFC. Because remember, Arizona Cardinals was in our division at that time.
That's correct. And that's another thing that a lot of people, it might be an oversight. The Cardinals are actually the oldest franchise in the NFL. A lot of people will see that as an oversight.
Yeah, so's the Giants too now. The Giants is fairly old too.
Yeah, Giants 1925. And the Giants actually have, going back with Philly, that's their second oldest rivalry in the history of the league, second to Green Bay and Chicago.
Right.
1933 would date the Eagles and Giants getting it on.
And I do want to say this. Out of our 8 championship teams, the 1927 world champion New York Football Giants did not get rings.
I wasn't aware of that.
They did not have rings that ceremony, that championship team.
I was not aware.
Yeah. Now you know. Knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
Why? I want to know why.
Yeah, I don't know. But the what was it? The 33 and or was it the 34? Because no, we won it in 33.
Right.
And then we won it again. I can't remember what year. Was it 38? And then the 1956, they all got a ring for that. And that's the ring that John Merrill wears today.
Yeah.
He doesn't wear any of the Super Bowl rings, probably because they're bigger, obviously.
Yeah, they're definitely bigger. Yeah.
But
they've definitely fashionably become bigger.
Yeah.
With the times. Recency bias. That's one thing about this fan base that I want people to start either unlearn or do a little more learning. I think that's one thing that legitimately bothers me with certain layers of this fan base is that, I understand if you're a younger Giant fan, you might not have the great experiences that the 3 of us might have. We're a little bit older than some of these newer Gen fans, but I feel that when you're a fan of an organization, it's your responsibility to dig a little and do some homework on the origins of your franchise.
Yeah.
I love it.
These are good reads.
I love it.
Good reads, by the way.
That's why I'm a firm believer in, and a lot of people disagree, and that's fine. It's just my belief that as a fan of a team, if you weren't there to see your championships, I don't think you should be able to brag about them.
Yes.
Well, being a Yankee fan, I'm not gonna be like 27 and be that obnoxious, dude.
Right.
I'm gonna be like, yo, we were kicking ass and taking names from 96 into 2001, and I'm very proud of that dynasty.
Absolutely.
And I grew up watching Don Mattingly, who was my favorite player, and it broke my heart that he never got to win one.
Yeah.
That's how I'll pitch it. I'm not going to – I love my history, and I had a father who was all about teaching me about the Yankee history. So, yeah, man, I love the movie 61. Nice little educational tour of what Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle were going through during that wild season, or most recently Aaron Judge with that history tidbit and bringing it back. Then when you factor in the steroid era, there's a lot to it. But if there's anything I could say to a lot of Giant fans, I understand that everybody has an opinion, but can we do a little better without fighting with one another?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes though, I see some of the stuff and I'm just like, you guys became a fan in between 07 and 11.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I admire some of the passion that I see some of these fan bases, but I think it's not so much, I guess, getting along or whatnot. Just respect each other's opinions.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's okay to, dislike Daniel Jones or right. I'm Team Jones. And the reason why I'm Team Jones is because he's the one that's on the field.
Right.
He was the one that was deemed the starting quarterback.
It's like I always say, I'm a fan of the name on the front of jersey, not necessarily the name on the back.
Exactly.
Love it. I couldn't agree anymore. And I have said something awfully similar to that. We worship the organization. Our nickname is on every game issued football.
Yeah.
And
our late owner.
Our late owner. But, I always say our owner because, the way I look at it, he's alive in our lineage, alive in our hearts. Unbelievable, but history.
And I'll say this too about the whole Saquon contract situation. People forget that Tom Brady, that was part of that dynasty. He took a pay cut.
Indeed.
He got paid $25 million. He could have got paid a lot more. Why did he take the pay cut? Because he wanted the pieces around him to help him win.
Right.
Now, I'm not telling anybody to follow that recipe, but people can hate Tom Brady, but that alone, that says winning to him was more important than getting the bag. Now, we can make the case, well, why didn't Jones do that? Jones, in a sense, did get, how can I say this? A marketable contract. Okay. Now, was it premature? We can always say yes now because hindsight's always 20/20. But when he made the deal, when he took us where he took us back to loving Giant football, that one season without a number one wide receiver got us that playoff win. Everybody was like, hey, write him a check.
And dare I say he was the best offensive player on the field that day?
Yeah.
Right. Well, and also, too, let's not forget, that was after the Giants made like 3 attempts to pay Barkley. Right. And his people said no.
And this is the thing, too. When you turn down offers from the brass, you can't just naturally assume that they want to keep trying to do business with you after you say no. Ask Scottie Pippen how that works.
Right, right. Or the deal's going to get better.
Right.
Me too, because it makes me look at that whole situation different too. Because now people, in the situation itself, does that say?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Yes, I agree.
My oldest friend in the world, right there. He hates everything Philly.
Yeah, me too. I forgot what I was saying already. So, yeah, I did forget what I was saying. Let's go on.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Fellas, we're coming up on the final minute here. Anything you guys would like to say on the way out?
Go ahead, go first, Ant.
I just want to say that the draft is going to be fun. And as Giants fans, can we stop killing each other? We're supposed to be fans. I'm so sick of seeing people wanting to be more right than wanting better for our organization. Right. I'm so sick of that because to me, you're not a fan.
You basically said what was in my mind, so I don't have anything to say. Sneaky, take it home.
Well, yeah, Ant got it. He hit the nail on the coffin, but I will say this. I'll plug myself. If you're not following me, please Follow me on all social medias. Sneaky G Man 11 on TikTok, Sneaky G Man on everything else. If you can't, you could Google me. Please also follow Ant on TikTok, Instagram. I have a show Tuesday, Thursday nights. Make it count. Sneaky G podcast. Richie, I appreciate you.
Thanks, Richie.
Sharing your platform with us tonight. I had none but fun. This hour just flew by, man.
Yes, yeah, it went too
Thank you
quick,
so much.
but we'll definitely do it again, gentlemen. It was a pleasure having you on. I'm going to be linking this out to everybody, and you'll be seeing me in the comment box, and maybe I'll be paying you guys a visit in the near future.
I just got one more thing to say.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go Giants.
Have a good night, guys.